Okay, I have 10 o'clock. I will call the Harrison County Commission meeting for Wednesday, July 2nd, 2025, 10 a.m. to order. If you will rise and join in the invocation and pledge, please.
Heavenly Father, we come to you today with praise and glory. We know it's made clear in your writings, Lord, that while sometimes we walk in the dark, you, Lord, omnipotent, can see everything. Darkness has no power over you. All we need to do when we are lost is follow you, and you will be the lamp on our feet. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oops, little mix up there. Stumbled a little bit, but that's okay. Okay, public comment number one. Greg Dale, we have signed up to speak. Greg.
Morning, Commissioners. Morning, Laura. I come today as a concerned citizen and also as the chairman of Sun Valley PSD. I have a unique situation that's, if you know, I don't know if you know where Indian Run is in Cherry Camp, that little where they come together. We've got 20 residents out there that they don't have any water or really bad water. It's orange, it has an odor, and it's just not feasible for us to get there through to traditional means and funding. So I'm here basically to ask for a letter of support. I've talked to Delegate Riley, and Laura's laid a letter there that he sent to the IJDC. We've jumped through all the hoops, done the accounting, the preliminary engineering, and we could get this out to bid within 45 days, but it's just held up somewhere up there between the Public Service Commission and the governor. And this is not a want, it's a need. If everybody here could imagine having to go haul water to your house just to do your laundry or just to cook. And in the military, I've been to several third world countries, and we just can't have that. I mean, that's pretty close to Route 50. And the cost is about $2 million, but there's a fund, it's a critical needs fund for these types of situations. And I think there's around $13 million in that fund, and we're looking about 2 million. And that would help some economic development out that way also to get that line there. But there's no way we would get approved as a PSD to go that far and only serve that few customers. So that's where the critical needs comes in. And Delegate Riley, Senator Queen, we've got these folks involved. Kylie Radcliffe has worked with us. We've done all this work and we're just held up, and these folks out there they either don't have water or they're having to haul it. And it's probably stemmed from some of the Marcellus activity there. If not, it's a big coincidence, but they don't have the luxury of time and money to fight the big guys, if you will. So we were asked to help, and I assured them that I would do everything that I could. So I would ask that you all help us out and give us a letter of support to the governor to get this thing rolling, because the longer we wait, the closer the bad weather's getting. And we even looked at trying to do it ourselves, but having a small staff and to go that far, we can't do it and do our daily operations. So I know it's a lot of money, but that's 20 people, and to have to live like that, I can't imagine myself having to do that. They can't go home from work and cook dinner. They have to haul water every so often. So I believe the well companies delivered them water for about 5 years or so, for a while. So, but they've since pulled out. So any help that we can get from y'all would be appreciated. And I thank you for the time. If you want to contact Senator Queen, Delegate Riley, Clay is also working on the project. So it was recommended to us through the IJDC to pursue this critical needs funding. So that's where we're at, and I would appreciate your help. And thank you for the time.
You got it.
Thank you.
Laura's making notes right now, I think, so. Okay. 10:05, we have a public hearing of a countywide firework ordinance. So I will open the public hearing. And is there anyone here to speak for the fireworks ordinance? Do that. Since I've already opened this. Is there anyone here to speak against the firework ordinance?
I guess it's
Okay.
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning.
How is everyone?
All right,
My name's Rachel Romano.
there you go.
Okay, yes,
I was waiting on that.
I'm here in my personal capacity, not as our county prosecutor. But I do believe that the ordinance is currently written is a little unduly restrictive and could maybe be tapered back a little bit. I believe that there's a de facto clause in paragraph B that would basically prohibit fireworks all times of the year. I don't know if you have it up on the screen or not, but in paragraph A, you mention when we are allowed to let off fireworks if you're outside of city limits and the more rural areas of the county. And I believe my reading of paragraph A is that there are 2 times a year. The 4th of July and New Year's holidays would be the only times that the county is willing to permit its citizens to let off fireworks. And there's times and maybe a weekend preceding those actual holidays in which the county feels that it is appropriate per this ordinance. That alone is restrictive, as we're only giving it to 2 times a year. But then in paragraph B, the county has written the ordinance so that it reads, you cannot let off the fireworks if it's going to be within 500 linear feet of any type of residential structure. That's almost a de facto ban on most people ever being allowed to let off fireworks if they're in their homes. I personally have not received complaints, and I will say that in my capacity as the prosecuting attorney about this issue. I'm sure you all have, for this to be at your doorstep right now. Personally, I would be wholly against the ordinance, but I do know in my line of work that the answer is usually compromise. And I think that there's maybe a way that we could work on this so it's not so restrictive, and that we are aiding the people that are finding this to be a nuisance in their backyard because maybe they have neighbors that are unwilling to cooperate with them versus those that don't have the nuisance but do want to let fireworks off, you know, for birthdays or Christmas or Memorial Day. It just seems a little restrictive in my opinion, not to mention the fine in paragraph C. And I'm thinking this is an oversight and just not written correctly, is a mandatory fine of $1,000. It's not up to $1,000. It reads as if any person who is charged with this offense and loses in the magistrate court will pay a fine of $1,000. Right now it reads as if it's mandatory. So I don't know that that was the intent. I certainly hope that's not the intent. I don't know of any other misdemeanor type offense where our mandatory fine is right out the gate $1,000. So if nothing else, let's at least modify that to some degree. So yeah, I'm not for it. And I think that there's some compromise that could be done in there. Okay.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks, guys.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak against the firework ordinance, either in person or on Zoom? Okay, hearing none, then I will close the public hearing for the firework ordinance. Is there anyone on Zoom that wishes to speak publicly? Anyone on Zoom wish to speak publicly? And for the record, Commissioner Hinkle is out, correct? Correct. Okay. Number 2, consent agenda. What's the pleasure?
Motion approved, please.
Motion to approve consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Payroll change notices A through H.
Motion approved A through H, Madam President.
Motion to approve payroll changes A through H. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Minutes and/or number 4, minutes and/or amended minutes of previous meetings. A, regular meeting minutes for Wednesday, June 18th, 2025. What's the pleasure?
Motion approved June 18th, 2025 minutes, please.
Motion to approve June 18th, 2025 minutes. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None, motion carried. Number 6, exonerations, corrective tickets, joint applications. It looks like we have all 3. A, B, and C. What's the pleasure?
Motion approved A, exoneration, B, collect tickets, and C, joint property application.
Motion to approve 6, A, exonerations, B, corrective tickets, and C, joint property applications. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None, motion carried. Number 7, consideration of approval of a project fund requisition for the payment of costs associated with the project to be financed from proceeds of the Series 2019 bonds issued for the Charles Point Economic Opportunity Development District Series 2021 A and B Development District Number 3, White Oaks Project Number 2, and Series 2008 A, Charles Point Project Number 2, Northland Bay of Improvements. We have A through C. What's the pleasure?
Motion approved A, B, and C, please.
Motion to approve 7, A, B, and C. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Number 8, review, discuss, consider Mountaineer Trail Network Regional Authority Board appointments. A, reappoint George Finley to a second and final 4-year board appointment term to end June 30th, 2029. B, acknowledge the appointment of Kent Spellman to a second 4-year term ending June 30, 2027. This is the second and final 4-year term following an initial 2-year term appointment ended June 30, 2023.
Motion approved, Mr. Finley and Mr. Spellman, please.
Motion to approve 8, A and B. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Number 9, review, discuss, consider Jim Skidere reappointment to the Board of Health. What's the pleasure?
Motion approved, Mr. Skidere, for reappointment to the Board of Health, please.
Motion to approve Mr. Skidere for the reappointment to the Board of Health. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Number 10, review, discuss, consider ratification and amendment of oil and gas lease agreement, potential executive session pursuant to 6(9)A 4(B)(9) to consider matters involving or affecting the purchase, sale, or lease of property, advanced construction and planning, the investment of public funds, or other matters involving commercial competition, which, if made public, might adversely affect the financial or other interest of the state or any political subdivision.
I don't think so.
Okay.
We don't need to go into executive session. Let me explain it.
Okay.
So this parcel was subject to an old oil and gas lease. It didn't allow for modern development methods, pulling, combining the acreage with other acreage. So the county used that as leverage to negotiate an increased royalty rate and to give the operator the means and mechanisms to develop it through horizontal drilling. We also retransferred all the modern operational risk to the operator. And it's consistent with what I'm seeing across the board in this part of the county. This is a parcel which is located adjacent to the airport. If you approve it today, I would just ask that we get it signed today as well, the operator. This is in their next drilling unit, which is set to get underway very, very soon. Questions?
Does it require all signatures or?
Believe it's set up for the president's
Okay.
signature, and it is set up for the president's signature.
Then I'll make the motion to go ahead and move forward with the condition of this commission president's signature.
Okay, motion to move
Proceed.
with the oil and gas lease agreement
Mhm.
and affix the signature of the president.
Yes, please.
Is there any discussion?
Uh.
Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Okay, it is 10:15 and we have a special funding request from the City Parks of Clarksburg requesting $2,000 for their Wheeling Symphony Concert and Fireworks Night on July 3rd, 2025.
Motion to approve $2,000 for the symphony on July 3rd.
Motion to approve the $2,000 donation to this for the symphony to the City Parks of Clarksburg, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
Mhm.
Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Number 11, review, discuss, consider contract out maintenance, grass cutting for the Ellis property for the rest of the season.
Madam President, I asked the administrator to put this on the agenda. If you work with me here, we're overloaded with playgrounds and properties that we own in Real Trail. What would be a fair amount to go ahead and get this brush hogged, mowed, get the fence taken down? When will the building be torn down, Laura? The restaurant.
Within the next 2 weeks. I think it's next week, but please don't hold me to that. So within the next 2 weeks, the restaurant is coming down.
And go ahead, and even if we do whatever we do with the property, let's get rid of everything that's on the field, what's all the dilapidated with the speakers that just don't work or anything. We want to get all that removed and get this, part of a beautification process of county property. So could we allocate, what do you think, Susan? I mean,
My understanding is maintenance doesn't have an issue. They say they can do it.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, we just voted down the rail trail because we got a bridge because weren't getting it done.
No, that's not why I voted down a bridge.
Yeah.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Okay, you guys think we're gonna get this done? I'll submit. I just know that it looks
If
like
it
crap.
doesn't get done, then we'll take that up. Is
Okay,
that fair enough?
yeah.
So no action to be taken on number 11, correct? Okay, number 13, review, discuss, consider memorandum of understanding with the city of Shinston for emergency demolition of, there it is, of a building using DEP funds.
Madam President, we skipped number 12.
Yeah, but okay. Number 12, sorry, Charlotte. Back. Review, discuss, consider getting cost estimate and specifics to apply for First Foundation Board money for helicopter pad in Salem.
All this is, Madam President, is that the city of Salem voted unanimously last week at their Thursday meeting that they would designate this property. And what it does is, all we're gonna do is have Laura get with whomever to get the specs of the depth of the concrete, the width of the concrete, the lighting that's necessary. And then if we get that, then we can turn around and ask the foundation for the monies to actually put the pad in. This would benefit Harrison County in the Salem area, but also benefit on a mutual aid side of it, because in Ritchie and Doddridge County, 30 some years ago, we did move the hospital 25 minutes away from them, and they're in somewhat of no man's land, whether to go to Wood County or Harrison County. And if this could help them to land, which they use now, but actually have a pad that would be safer, it's just a win for everybody. It's just a matter of healthcare. And then it'd save lives. So our contribution would be just to put the package together to what it would cost to do this, so we could turn it into the foundation and ask for their monies.
I just have one question. can Salem not ask for the money? I mean, I don't have an issue with it, but I'm just,
Whatever you want to do.
I don't. I mean, I really don't. I think it needs to be done. This has been talked about for quite a while, I believe. So, and I don't know what the expense will be.
I
Well-
don't, I know that, I met with HealthNet representatives last year. They told us exactly what we would need, but we never moved forward with like going out to bid and get pricing or anything, which we can absolutely do if that's what the commission wants.
Do we have any idea about what that would cost?
I don't. If it was discussed then, I don't remember.
But do they have it?
Mm-mm.
That's the issue. Should we have some kind of agreement with Salem or just go ahead and,
Well, they've already approved to go ahead and allocate the property and just be used for this. Really, our role in it is just to get the numbers and the specifications.
and we can get the numbers. I mean, we can figure out what it would cost.
Absolutely. We can get the numbers and
Okay.
everything else. We can,
Which
I mean, I think it's a very important. I'm not trying to put anything.
and the reason it's agenda item today, Madam President, is because we've been working on this, as you said, me and Laura went to the site the first year she was administrator. And then last year we brought it up again, and here we are again talking about it. We don't move on it, let's just drop it if we don't want to do it.
Well, the agenda item today is just to get estimates for the detail.
Just so we can turn it into the foundation board.
I would encourage you all to also talk to Doddridge County. There is a hole there in coverage going west across 50. But I just wanted to clarify that today is an action. It's just really moving forward. Correct?
with getting the bids and everything else.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
That's your intent today. Okay. Cause I don't have a problem reaching out to, oh, she can somebody in Dodge. Okay, did you make a motion?
I'm sorry.
Hello?
I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Brandy Garner. I'm the mayor of Salem. Would it be possible for me to speak for a moment? I raised my hand, but no one's
I didn't-
noticed.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that, Brandon.
That's okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, we have been talking about the helicopter pad for quite some time. And first of all, good morning, everyone. And on behalf of the city of Salem, I want to thank you for making this an opportunity for the development of the helicopter landing pad here in Salem. At our last council meeting, as Commissioner Treecross said, it was unanimous for us to work with you guys on this project. We recognize the tremendous value this landing pad would bring, not only to our city, but to the neighboring communities and counties. And as I think it was already mentioned, they do use they use a field next to the armory to land the helicopter now, which causes a lot of problems for people to access their homes for several hours at a time. We do have a company that is willing to work with us on the concrete. To do that, we would need help with the lights. I think this landing pad would enhance not only our city's infrastructure, but strengthen regional connections and lay the groundwork for future growth. We see it as more than just a construction project. It represents another step forward in Salem's journey of revitalization that has already begun. And it is a sign of progress, possibility, and partnership with the county, which we desperately are looking for. Salem's location is also a strategic advantage because it is close to a lot of smaller communities. There are a lot of accidents that happen right there on 50, and we do use that area where they land the helicopter at several times. So we think that this would help us to meet our goal of making Salem not only an emergency response area, but also a hub for businesses and regional development. It's an investment in not only our future, but the shared future of the communities around us and our region. So we're grateful for the opportunity to have the helipad there at the armory. We also have our EMS that is housed right there in the armory, which would be helpful. So we are looking forward to collaborating with you guys on this if you want to move forward in any way that we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's go ahead and make the motion to go ahead and proceed with this and get these numbers, begin the process tomorrow, today and tomorrow. And then that way, the sooner the better, we can get with, begin the process of applying for the money through the board.
So the motion is to move forward for a cost estimate
Yeah.
for a
And,
helicopter pad.
and specification because it has to meet criteria.
So in order to apply for funds.
Right.
First Foundation.
Yep.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Okay. I have 1026. So, special, 1020 was a special funding request from Harrison County Composite Inc., Harrison County Mountaineers, requesting $1,000 to help fund their 2025 volunteer projects at Watersmith Memorial State Park. Would you like to speak, or? Yeah, I wouldn't want you to walk through.
Members of the County Commission, thank you for taking the time to hear our special funding requests. My name is Tristan Rozier. I'm an assistant coach for the Harrison County Composite Mountaineers Middle and High School mountain biking team. Our director, Elo Caputo, is going to give an introduction to the team.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to let us speak. What we are is we're a youth mountain bike team, and we're a youth development league, and we use mountain biking as the catalyst for that youth development. Unlike a lot of other sports teams, we are very, very active in maintaining the trails that we use and volunteering time to do so. We have 21 or 22 teams across the state that we compete against at 5 different races at various state parks. And the team's just grown just year over year. I mean, when I started with my daughter, when she was in 6th grade, there was maybe 10 kids, and now we're over 30 kids and approximately 20 coaches. And the whole staff, the whole organization, national, is just phenomenal. And last year, our team did more trail volunteer hours than anybody in the state. And we were awarded a very nice trail maintenance package to help maintain the tools. And we can expand that, and we can do even more. Our 2 facilities in the county that we utilize are Bridgeport City Park Trails and Watersmith State Park. And just like every other state park or city park or anything else, they're all understaffed, and it's relied heavily on volunteers to maintain all of that. Our team did over 250 volunteer hours at Watersmith last year, maintaining, benching, weed eating, trimming. And Tristan's going to speak more on that. But what we're doing is way more than what any other sports team is doing and what we're offering. I mean, the character building, the responsibility that we're placing on the kids to be an active part of this. Even tonight, we have a trail work day tonight for 4 hours at Watersmith, and there will be probably 25 of us down there for 4 hours tonight, weed eating, trimming. And then in doing so, we also teach the kids how to do it properly. So that's what we're looking for the $1,000 for. And Tristan's going to elaborate a little bit more on what we plan to use that for. Thank you.
As Elio stated, our state league encourages participation in a program called Teen Trail Corps, where student athletes, parents, and coaches volunteer time to help maintain local, municipal, and state trail systems. Our team had the most volunteer hours in the state last year. We're very proud of the kids for meeting that goal. We want to help them succeed in working towards that title again this year. Along with taking advantage of great spaces to practice, like the Bridgeport City Park, Harrison Rail Trail system, we do spend most of our time at Watersmith Memorial State Park. Working with the superintendent, we are working on rehabilitating an underused area of the park into a skills area for users of all ages to improve their riding abilities. Funds we are requesting will go towards building wooden features to be included with the dirt and rock formations that have already been established. Drainage piping, additional soil, and additional rock are also on our needs list that we have submitted. Any leftover funds will be put towards use of other small maintenance projects that we're currently working on, helping out with at the park, such as bridge traction improvements and updated map kiosk locations. Thank you for your time.
I've learned more about this program in the last few days than I didn't even know you existed. This is great. I think it's me personally.
Wonderful.
I think it's great for these kids to.
And,
learn.
and gentlemen, I'm 100% for the $1,000, but I got to give all the credit in the world to our commission president, Susan Thomas. She asked me if I would be willing to give a little bit more, and the answer, of course, is yes. So she's the one that wanted to do so.
Wonderful.
But I'll make the motion to go ahead and give you $2,500, and please use it
Thank you.
well and keep growing our youth and
Thank you.
giving them something to do. I think it's important that they have things to do that
Yep.
are growing them
Yeah.
in ways that are good instead of bad. So
This is a lifelong activity. It's a
Yeah.
family activity. This is just helping with tourism in the state and the area.
we give incredibly to the schools for their FFA program. We believe that we're building something with these programs, and thank you. Motion to give $2,500, allocate $2,500, Madam President.
Motion to allocate $2,500 to the Harrison County Composite Inc. or Harrison County Mountaineers. Any further discussion? Thank you. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Keep up the good work, kids. Keep it up.
Thank you so much.
Because I go out there and walk. I don't ride out there, but I do go out there every once in a while.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, I think we're on 13 now. Review, discuss, consider memorandum of understanding with the city of Shinnston for emergency demolition of a building using the DEP funds. You overlooked that.
This is an agreement with Shinnston, so we can go in and tear down the building of 720 Hood Avenue. It is currently closed, a road down, a major road that Shinnston desperately needs.
Yeah,
We are
it's,
working as fast as we can to do everything we can to get this down. We are all concerned about the woman that lives next door to it. It's a
I'm
pretty,
also concerned about the neighborhood that I saw a tractor and trailer trying to get down that street about this wide.
right.
So that's,
I talked to Department of Highways this morning to see if they would at least open up one lane, and they said absolutely not. The building's too unstable. They said that once we have the building demolished, and if it's in a pile, we can leave it in a pile for a little bit until we figure out what we're going to do for the stabilization of the banks.
for this little bit, we did this once before and it's still sitting there. Somewhere
Exactly.
else. Sorry, I have to say it.
That one's next.
Yeah, it's been next for I don't know how many years now.
But they said that once we do have that down, they will open up both lanes. And whenever we go to clean that up and stabilize the bank, that they will close this road back down until we get that cleaned up.
Now, I know we had somebody go out and look at it yesterday, correct?
Yes, we had somebody go out
Have we heard-
Friday,
Have we heard? anything?
Monday.
As you can see, I'd like to see this done as soon as quickly as possible, but we got to protect the woman's house. Well, the woman.
Right,
I
That
don't want
is
her to
correct.
fall down the hill.
that is correct.
They are working very hard to try to get us a game plan. It'll probably be a two-phase process, but they want to do it right. And the main concern is with that house, and that lady, exactly. So they're working very hard. They know it's an emergency, that we need to get it cleared up. And I just want to specify for the record, the DEP did send an email that I forwarded to the commissioners of why we are looking to enter into this MOU. Usually we don't do things inside the city. The DEP is willing to fund this demolition. With that, they're using ARPA funds. The city of Shinnston did not receive any of the ARPA funds previously for houses to be torn down, but the county did. Since we're already in their system,
Have an open account. Is
an
that what
open
I heard?
account, so to say, and they can't add anyone to that after December of 2024. We'll be the pass-through entity, so the DEP can step in and help tear this down.
Do you want to just combine 13 and 14, Madam President?
Sure. And 14 is to declare the following properties as emergency nuisance properties within the framework of the International Property Management Code ordinance, so the emergency measures abatement can be commenced. And that 720 Hood Avenue, that's the property we're discussing.
Mhm.
48 10 Mile Road, Wallace, and 573 Summit Park Avenue, Clarksburg.
Motion Motion approved.
Okay.
Memorandum of understanding and also the emergency demolition of 720 Hood Avenue, 48 Hermel Road, and 573 Summit Park Avenue, please.
Okay, and affix the appropriate signatures to the.
Memorandum of understanding.
Now, I have no promise of getting the other two down.
Right.
I am just submitting them to the
But as
DEP and
long as
crossing my
we get the
fingers.
one covered, that's the important.
Yeah, that one is covered. That one is.
And also,
We're sure it's covering everything to date. Okay,
Yes.
and can we just add the wording to the motion, to make them, to label them as emergency nuisance properties? Those three.
Sure.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion was to approve the memorandum of understanding and affix the appropriate signature and declare the 720 Hood Avenue, Shinston, 48 10 Mile Road, Wallace, and 573 Summit Park Avenue, Clarksburg, properties as emergency nuisance, to be torn down with the possibility that only one may get done. I just didn't mean to add that, but
I think it depends upon how much
Right.
that's going to cost.
I get it. Just as long as we get that one done. Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thanks, Charlotte. Number 14, review, discuss, consider declaring the following property. We did that already. Number 15, review, discuss, consider appropriate official action regarding statements and process for billing and collection of property taxes and community enhancement district assessments for properties located in Charles Point development. Who wants to go first?
Good morning, Madam President, Commissioner Treecost. My name is Isaac Foreman. I represent Genesis Partners with respect to this tax ticket issue. And first, I want to thank you and thank the commission for making this a public agenda item for discussion today. There's been a lot of back and forth in letters between counsel for the commission and the developer, but I think a public forum and public discussion of appropriate action is perfect. And I want to thank you and thank the commission for putting this on the agenda. We've reached a point where I think all the parties agree and acknowledge that the tax tickets for Charles Point, including the TIF assessments and the CED assessments, are not accurate and have not been accurate for at least several years. It was those inaccuracies that resulted in the suspension of the tax sale with the state auditor's office several months ago. And although I can certainly go through and I'm prepared to go through individual tax tickets, Mr. Corton is here, Mr. Stewart is here as well. I want to be clear that Genesis' interest in this is in getting the tax tickets to be accurate and in working with the county in a transparent way to see that this issue is corrected. We know, for instance, that the tax tickets and the receipts did not accurately calculate the taxes that were due. We have parcels where if you accept the assessments on the tickets, the assessed tax is somewhere near 80 or 90% of the assessed value, which is obviously not accurate. We know that for the parcels when taxes are paid, we know that the flow of funds appears to reflect payments made in a manner that's not consistent with the way in which they should be paid. Had some discussions with counsel for the county indicating that there is a separate back office reconciliation that somehow happens that the taxpayer has no visibility into. We have requested those reconciliation reports. Our hope is to conduct that reconciliation together with the county so that we can get in a position where all the parties agree that the tax tickets and the assessments are accurate. We've received recently some what I'll call draft tax tickets for 2025 because those will come out. They're supposed to come out July 15. We've seen in those drafts at least one parcel that's not located in the TIF that has a TIF assessment on the line on its tax ticket, even though it's not located there, and a draft ticket, which I believe includes items just omitted from it, like the state's portion of the property tax, which we know needs to be included and isn't. So I know the agenda item for today is to review and discuss appropriate official action regarding those statements. The developer's position is we want the statements to be accurate. We want them to be correct. And so we believe that the appropriate official action is either a motion or a resolution authorizing a reconciliation of the historical transactions. That would be the payments from the taxpayer to the county, from the county to the trustee, and from the county to Municap, because Municap essentially takes the receipts every year and uses them to calculate those CED assessments. And the developer stands here ready to work collaboratively with all those parties to see that this process gets done and done correctly, so that there are no more issues going forward with what I think we all know to be inaccurate tax tickets. And I'm not, and the developer's not casting any aspersions with respect to those inaccuracies. I think this is the only CED district in the state, the first and only. So I think it's understandable that issues have occurred, but we're at a point in this process where we should work together to correct it and get it right.
Agree more. Anybody else want to? Because I have some questions. If you would like to address anything, if you have anything, that's fine, but I have several questions myself. It doesn't matter. You can go first and then I'll ask the questions.
So, you know, one aspect of this situation is that with respect to the tax tickets and the tax statements, they've been done this way, at least to my knowledge, going back to 2012, 2011. I think we had 3 years of capitalized interest on those bonds, 2008B, which should have taken it through like 2011. So first year of assessments, I think, would have been around 2011. So at least to my knowledge, the billing of the taxes and the assessments have been done this way going back that many years. And it wasn't until, early 2020, late 24, early 25, that this was raised as an issue by the taxpayer. So I think that's a little late to the game as far as this process. I mean, it's been done this way since day one. There is a reconciliation process but part of this ties to, and I guess let's recognize who's here, first of all. So I think we've got Mr. Manley from Software Systems. Software Systems is the tax software provider for the Harrison County Sheriff's Tax Office that actually does the tax billing. We've got Joni from the tax office. Of course, we've got Genesis Partners, who's the developer of Charles Point and the taxpayer in a lot of these circumstances. We've got Mr. Faree, the assessor. Let's see here. Am I missing anybody? Rachel has had some involvement in this as we've from not too long ago. So, and also on the I think on hopefully dialed in, I see Patrick Kennedy, perhaps others from Municap. And of course, Municap is the administrator of the district. So part of this goes back many years to the way that the software is done to try to make the assessments work in a way that's at least intrusive and possible with the existing software and how things are built. So the way that, and correct me if you can feel free to jump in at any time, but my understanding of the way that has historically been done is that it's been through adjusting the levy rates. So for properties in the Charles Point district, you have a line item that's added for, in essence, Charles Point TIF, and that has a levy rate then added to it. That then the result of that, when you apply the assessed value to that levy rate, then yields an amount from the tax that's equivalent to the tax increment. And then through that, then you have to adjust all the levy rates for all the other levying bodies so that it accounts for that amount going to the TIF. So that's the way that it's been done, is by adjusting the levy rates. And I think we've all known, for, at least to my knowledge, going back many years, when I can recall having a conversation with Software Systems probably 10 years ago about some of these things. And it was revealed at that time that, yes, because of the way the software is, the tickets appear this way as far as the distribution of funds. But yet there's a monthly reconciliation that happens between the tax office and Software Systems, where they get together and look at, when payments are made, how they're to be actually allocated. And so that's done on a monthly basis. When some of these issues came to light, and most recently, and I think late 24, 25, we did have MuniCap go back and do at least a 1-year look back, recognizing it would probably be cost prohibitive to go back to 2011 to see, with this monthly reconciliation process, does it appear that it's being done correctly? MuniCap came back and said, yes, it appears to us it's being done correctly. So yes, we know that the tax statements don't appear correct on their face, or the receipts. So because that was a basis for the auditor then pulling properties from the sale, then that indicates to the county, and I think all of us, that this needs to be done in a different way if this is to be a process that everyone's comfortable with. So because of that, we have been working with Software Systems to try to correct these issues. As my understanding is that they have adjusted their software such that it does show a correct amount of annual CED assessment payable. The half-year tax does include half year of CED assessment and property tax. Any interest and penalties would apply equally to both assessment and property tax. The levy distribution amounts on the tax statements are now, at least, I think, designed to appear accurate. There is a limitation that in the levy distribution section, the software only allows 9 line items. So if you get past that, there's an other that's shown. And so any other levy distribution that can't be captured in the 9 rows, then is in this catch-all other. So the Charles Point is listed on there now, and that's the CED portion. Then you have the other levying bodies. I understand the amount that will actually go to them. And then there's going to be a separate item for the Charles Point TIF that should show the incremental portion that's going to go to the bonds. Now, I think, Joni, that we're asking the tax office to try to work with the levy distribution section so that the TIF, we know the CED is going to show on there, but if we could do it such that the TIF is shown as one of the 9 items, then that way the taxpayer can see, because they don't really care the amount that's going to the other levying bodies. I mean, the important part is the amount going to the TIF and the amount going to the CED. So I think that has to come from on the county's end, so that there's an election made when you go to print the statements, that's one of the items that will appear. So if we can do that on our end, I think that would address that issue. As far as all the historical reconciliations, I mean, I think Genesis, I hope, has found that the tax office has been good to work with over the years, sharing information and that sort of thing. So, I mean, is that, Joni, do you think that's an issue to share that historical stuff, or is the information that Genesis is looking for as far as the historical reconciliations? Okay. So hopefully they can share that information, and then hopefully that addresses Isaac's concern about the historical and being able to see how that's been done in the past. In the meantime, we do have, we've got another tax cycle coming up. And there are statements that are going to need to go out on the 11th. So part of this is to try to get these statements as correct as we can to go out on the 11th. And if through any of this process, the review of the historical or what have you, any information comes to light that would indicate that there's a need to adjust the tax statements, then there's a process to do that, to prepare revised tax tickets and distribute those. But in the meantime, we do need to have tax tickets go out. So I think Software Systems has provided those. MuniCap is going through a process to review all of the tax tickets. They think that they can get that done by the 11th. I think we need to have tax tickets that go out on the 11th. If there's adjustments that need to be made from there, then I think that's something that we can do. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. Michael, I don't know if you had anything to add to, or any corrections to, not really, okay. So the intent of this was to try to, the process does need to be more transparent. I think we can all recognize that. I mean, the fact that the statements on their face have not appeared to be correct, or the receipts, obviously that's going to create a level of discomfort for the taxpayer. That needs to be addressed. We're trying to do that. And the process needs to be accurate. And so we're trying to do that. I think that's all that I have to say. At least if there's questions or any other discussion, I'm happy to try to participate in that, but that's,
Got questions and concerns.
yeah.
I mean, how long have we known that we had an issue with these tax tickets? I think we've known for quite some time, and I wish I could have seen some of these tax tickets 6 months ago or whenever this started. Because I looked at one the other day. I don't know what year it was from, but I looked at the numbers, especially to one of the line items, and it was a large number, rather large number. And that tipped me off that there's an issue. Because I'm looking at some of the same tax tickets these tax tickets, and they're much smaller numbers for those entities. So we've got to figure that out too. We've got to back up. I mean, if we could fix tickets now and move on, but we still have to take care of this. And maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's a calculation in there that I don't understand, but I don't understand why years ago it was probably a couple $100 more than it is today. That doesn't make any sense to me, but I'm not in your world. But it makes me want to go look at my tax ticket.
So that to try to address that is what I'm trying to describe with respect to the distribution section.
Right, and I think it's important that if that's the case, where did that money go? Should we have collected that money? Was it collected in error?
My understanding is that that's where the reconciliation is done when payments are made, that Software Systems and tax office get together and determine a proper allocation, and that those allocations are determined and made. And that's what we had.
So you be allocating that much money, what I saw on that tax ticket.
That's my understanding.
Okay, I definitely want to see that, because that was very alarming when I looked at that ticket. And then I look at the same one for 2025. That just put up a red flag for me. And had we known about this sooner, maybe we could have had all this done and we wouldn't be in crunch time trying to get these tickets out. That's mine. And are we allocating the proper amounts to the bondholder for these CED assessments? Has anybody ever seen a report for that to make sure that those are the right amounts that are going to the bondholders? have some of the transactions that have taken place recently? Do we know where those monies and credits have been applied for to the bondholder? I know this doesn't have anything to do with tax tickets, but this is just things that other things I would like to know. And the other total, that's another thing, blows my mind. When I saw other total, if that was on my tax ticket and it just said other and I had no idea where that was going to, I think those need to be specific, and that's just me speaking. I'm just speaking for myself. And then again, I think somebody mentioned that some of these properties, I know of at least one, I think, is not in that district. Is not in the TIF. There may be other tickets, I think, that are not in the TIF.
So we provided 3 examples and you're telling me that one of those 3 is not even in the district?
The drafts are not correct. My understanding is that the drafts are not correct, and
They're not correct, but they are in districts.
I apologize, Madam President. The drafts that we received for 2025 did not include a property outside of the TIF district. It was a historical ticket
Okay.
that
okay,
included
Okay,
a TIF line item.
but that's again, you paid on
I
that.
paid this year's tax on a oil gas, it was outside the district. So it was charged with the,
Okay.
That's right. That was
Okay,
that was a 2024 ticket, in fact, and just for the benefit of the record, I think the ticket number was 56499. It was an oil and gas property that I believe was not located in the TIF, but that had a TIF line item. It should have been in the Simpson outside district, but the text, a different district,
Whatever district.
not as part of Charles Point. So I
But
stand
that's
corrected.
nothing
It was
to
not a
say.
draft 2025 ticket. It was a 2024 ticket that was, in fact, I believe not located in Charles Point, but still had a TIF line item, which was paid.
Right.
And again, we have no understanding as to how
That happens.
that happens, how it's included on the tickets, or where that money went. The TIF line item just for that one ticket was almost $12,000.
And then I mean, and educate me on, some of these have property was previously sold. And we're charging tickets that, I mean, taxes
So
from something
my-
that was previously sold.
My understanding on that one is that those tickets have unpaid 2024 property taxes that are now delinquent. And for that reason, they need to be keyed so that the 2025 taxes can't be paid without also paying the 24s.
Okay, so that's just a red flag, basically, for when somebody sees that there's other taxes to be collected, but we've sold it.
It's not sold.
It goes to the state, correct?
yeah.
Okay, yeah. I understand the process, maybe a little bit more than that, but. Okay. That just caught my eye. And then there was something else. I wrote it down. Additional unpaid taxes exist. Is that the same thing as previously sold? So we're saying 2 different things that mean the same thing.
Well, that's on personal property.
Okay. I'm just making sure I didn't miss
Yeah.
anything. And then as far as, I mean, the C bonds, this is another thing I'd like to, I mean, are the requisitions that we've approved over the last few months, have all those been applied properly?
So those issues right now have to do, with Mon Health and with the requisitions. Those are items that
I know they're separate.
the
from
trust,
that,
but the trustee and the bondholder need to address those issues with Genesis Partners. And I'm having discussions with them right now to do that. And so my hope is that those issues are going to be addressed in the next couple of weeks with some communication from the bondholders to Genesis Partners.
Thank you, Tom. And that's all I have, I think. Unless something pops up. Your turn.
No, I
No, I'm
agree.
talking to the other lawyer
Oh.
in the room.
Sorry, I'm not.
Well, this lawyer, not that one back there.
Well, if we're gonna do a reconciliation, let's do something by now. when we typically do an audit of a business, we define specific parameters for the audit. So what windows are we looking at? What are we going to set in terms of timeline for the project? And how's that going to interplay with the 2025 ticket process, which we talked about today? So since we're all here, I think we ought to talk about some of those more granular type details in the hope of moving this process forward. Does that make sense, Tom?
It does.
In a meaningful way. So maybe let's have some discussion about that, about how we logistically, and Joni's here and Alan's here. I mean, how much data, I mean, let's just flesh it out. How much data, how long is it going to take? How quickly can we access the data? How quickly can we compile the data? How much time do we need for this process to kind of give it some foundation to move it forward?
So I think, oh, do you want to go first, Tom?
Go ahead, go ahead.
I think that we would like to see a reconciliation that goes back to the beginning, understanding that that may be impossible from a resource standpoint. I think at a minimum, we should look back to the creation of the CED district. The CED collection enforcement agreement was executed in 2008. I think maybe the first CED assessments were 2009 or 2010. But I think it's clear that the sort of inclusion of the CED assessments was a complicating factor. And so from our perspective, at a minimum, we should be looking back to the inception of the CED district. That collection enforcement agreement that sort of created the mechanism for including these on the tax tickets contains a specific provision about it's called preparation of tax tickets that says that each year the sheriff shall prepare for each parcel of property located within Charles Point CED a tax ticket that sets forth as separate line items. And then it goes Roman numeral 1, 2, 3. The real property taxes, the CED assessments apportioned against that parcel, and such other items as otherwise properly included. The other items would be school levies, excess levies, transit levies, other items properly includable. And I think we all know that this problem starts at least as early as 2008 and the inclusion of those CED assessments.
Probably true. Who is going to do, I mean, the results of the review have to be something that everyone has some level of confidence in. So who is going to do the review? I mean, is there paper? I mean, from the tax office, like, do you guys have paperwork that you can share with someone to then do that? Or do you guys have to go back and review and create documentation? Or like, what would be the process? Is there existing documentation, or is there documentation that has to be created? Yeah, some of this predates Joni. A lot of it.
One thing.
Yeah.
The state auditor comes in and does not, and I would suggest they've cleared all that back to their last audit. Because they would have accounted for all those allocations of funds during their life. I don't know that for a fact.
You mean when they audit the counties? But I guarantee you, they're not looking as close as we need them to look on this stuff.
I agree.
And it's not that they're not doing their
No,
due diligence,
exactly,
it's just, I mean, they have 55 county.
And we're a large county. I mean, I could be wrong. I could
Well,
be wrong about that, but I mean, I think that we definitely need some type of audit. Now, who does this?
I would suggest that we ask the auditors on the last few audits if they did, did address those issues. That might clear up a lot of this, and then, the concern would be auditing their last audit. If that kind of right. Changes the scope of the whole process.
Certainly
I mean,
appropriate to figure out
maybe-
whether these issues are something that the auditor's office looked into. I'd be surprised, as you've expressed on the commission, I'd be surprised if they got that granular, or if they even had access to the historical payments that were made to the trustee. But that's certainly something that I think the county can find out.
I mean, that would take care of a lot. I'm sure it's not bad.
Well, here's my concern is that I don't want to put a huge administrative burden on our staff, and typically when we do it, it's just an analogy, we audit an oil and gas company. We start with a defined sample size. We pick, if we do go beyond what the auditor did, we picked 2 or 3 data points or 4 data points, 4 years, and start there and look for some variance in the data, which might justify a further review. But I don't want to burden our people with a bunch of perhaps unnecessary work, because once the process was established, I doubt it changed a lot. Right, Tom?
I think that's accurate. I think it was all handled the same way with respect to the levy rates and how the taxes, that the statements were prepared with respect to adjusting through the levy rates.
I think we
I mean,
start asking
does-
the auditor, and then we define some data points and work with Genesis to do that.
I mean, does every single year have to be looked at? I mean, yes, every single year has to be looked at.
I think so, although I take Trey's point as a good one. If we start with the first 2 years and figure out, because assuming that the process didn't change much, then the initial inquiry is, well, was it done right in the first place? And if it was, then that gives you some level of comfort. If it wasn't, then you kind of know that there's been this waterfall effect and you probably do need to do more. I guess I'm really just kind of talking freely here. I think you start with the first maybe 2 years and then kind of pick a couple of the interim years that would allows you to see if the process in fact did change. I think talking with Genesis, there are probably years in which they know that certain transactions occurred, transfers to the trustee or other transfers that Genesis still has questions about the proper accounting for. So I think without having the benefit of getting a chance to talk to them, probably starting with the first 2 years and then selecting a few other interim years would be at least a good starting.
So one thing that happens every year with the CED process is that MuniCap, and I'm going to ask MuniCap. So Patrick, if you're on here, if you could unmute and.
Yes, I'm here, Tom. This is Patrick Kennedy from MuniCap.
Hey, Patrick. So as part of the CED process, MuniCap prepares a report every year that looks at how much in tax increment revenues are anticipated to be collected for that year, and how much, and a look back as to how much was anticipated to be collected in the prior year and was actually collected and allocated to the bonds. So, I mean, that if MuniCap's, I mean, that's essentially somewhat of an audit. If MuniCap is calculating how much is anticipated to be collected, and then there's a look back saying how much was actually collected and sent to the trustee, then that should be some indication that these amounts weren't going to other levying bodies. Is that an accurate statement, Patrick?
Yes, I would say so. However, I do want to just be clear that we are not auditors, so officially auditing is not a term I would use, but we do look at the reconciliation of monies that come in to the trust versus what we had expected, and would report on any inconsistencies that we find. I can't speak to any given year at the moment, but with the ongoing delinquency within this district, it's not as cut and dry, I'd say, from a reconciliation perspective.
Is it, but if over the course of this, if MuniCap was looking at prior year collections and they were way off from what you all were anticipating to be collected, then that would be a point of discussion, wouldn't it?
That would be correct, yes. And looking at our latest report for the CED, our it looks like I'm looking at, and I know you may not have this in front of you, but it's table C. It looks like the total TIF revenues outstanding was only 59, rounding up to $59,000. So yes, not a major point of an inaccuracy here that we have seen.
So I guess there's two things. Are the tax increment revenues going to the trustee? And are the CED assessments being, when they're paid, are they going to the trustee rather than other levying bodies? So I would assume that for the historical, you all have records that would show for each year how much in tax increment revenues were anticipated to go to the trustee versus how much were distributed to the trustee. And the same is the case for the CED assessments. For all CED assessments paid, the amount that actually went to the trustee. Is that something that you can check on, whether you guys have that? I bet you do. But if you could check on that, then we could get an idea as to how much variance that we may. I mean, if we're not seeing, if we're comparing historical collections to payments and how those payments were allocated, and MuniCap has been doing the reconciliations since day one, then we ought to be able to see some significant, if there are large variances in any year, that process should reveal that and drill down on any particular years that might warrant further inquiry. Would that be an accurate statement?
Yes, and we absolutely would have. We do have a monthly account reconciliation that we look at from directly from the trustee. So we would have every single dollar that did enter the trust. Probably, I mean, definitely since 2008, since issuance. From the perspective of being able to reconcile that per year, could be. We would absolutely need some other information, simply because in my experience in working with West Virginia TIF, each of those remittances could include investment income and potential other factors like prior year collections or something that would force the numbers not to line up perfectly. But that being said, yeah, any major inconsistencies would be able to be flagged, and I assume there is some level of documentation that would outline what related to those differences, aside from assuming they're fully accurate, of course.
Patrick, this is Isaac. Am I correct from our prior discussions, though, that MuniCap's work does not include comparing those payments that are received with the receipts and the flow that's reflected on the tax tickets?
I believe, if I understand your question, are you referring to that schedule at the bottom of the tax ticket?
Yeah, when a tax ticket has a line item for the various taxing bodies, and when the receipt shows how the money flowed out from those payments, my understanding from when you and I spoke briefly after the CED is that MuniCap does not actually look at those numbers to determine whether they are accurate as to the flow of money.
That's correct. In my analysis of 2024, the tax year 2024, it did seem that those figures were incorrect. However, I have zero reason to believe that the money remitted to the trust was incorrect. Meaning that I believe that schedule itself is not right, but it's not right in it's just a schedule on the tax bill, but it was not being used to remit funds.
And then my follow-up, I guess, is can MuniCap provide to the county and the developer a copy of the schedule that you just mentioned that goes back to 2008, reflecting all payments that were made to the trustee?
Tom, I may have to defer to you on that. I see no reason why we can't provide that information, but it's basically the registry from the trust. So we would have to
Yes.
put it into a report format, but it's essentially a data entry of the account statements directly from the trust.
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest that we have from MuniCap the anticipated the CED is a schedule that would show the CED assessments billed in each year. The CED assessments paid and how those payments, whether those payments were deposited with the trust estate or not. And then on the property tax side, the anticipated tax increment revenues that were calculated or projected to be collected for each year for the CED projections, and how much in tax was actually allocated to the trust estate. And if we have that information and we're not seeing significant variances there, there's no reason to have Joni go back and look at anything else. I mean, the concern is the money that's paid, is it getting to where it's supposed to go? The portion that's supposed to be allocated to the bonds, is it getting to the trust estate? And so if MuniCap has records from reconciling all the trust accounts and doing their projections as to how much was actually billed and how much was projected to be collected, and then they can trace back to amounts that actually get to the trustee, and we're not seeing significant variances there, it doesn't matter what the tax tickets say. We all know the tax tickets aren't correct and have never been correct in that way. So I would suggest we start there.
If the county commission agrees, MuniCap can look at, I think maybe 2022, tax year 2022 may be a good starting point. Simply because I know that there were some issues with 23 and 24, and tax year 25 obviously is ongoing. Those bills have not gone out yet. So I think 22 may be a good starting point. Again, I'm open if anyone else would prefer a different year.
23 is obviously, 23 and 24 are obviously anomalies because there haven't been payments for those tax years. I mean, yes, I'm sure there's been some statements paid. I'm sure there's been some statements paid, but the vast majority. Okay, well, which statements have been paid? Okay, well, all the statements, there's the vast majority of the statements are unpaid. Is that an accurate statement?
Right now, Tom, my understanding is that you can't even pay the 2024s that had prior CEDs because they're still showing as prior delinquencies.
That's correct.
The 2023s that were dismissed. So it would be a practical impossibility for the taxpayer to go and pay those, even though the CED board has now decided to put those forborne assessments on the 25 tickets.
But I'm understanding some of them have been paid.
Some of them have.
How did that occur?
I think they were ones without the CED assessments, but there were CED assessments on some of them.
Okay, so 23, I mean, are 23 and 24 going to be helpful tax years to look at?
From the developer's perspective, we would like to see the monthly reconciliation reports that are done by software systems. If they're literally just monthly reports, I don't know why it would be difficult to give us all of them and let us review them. From the county's perspective, I still think it makes sense to
I have a question when it comes to that, because when the taxpayer paid that tax ticket, they paid that larger amount. Then you reconcile it after payment is made. Do you refund them money if they're due money? Or refund to somebody? Are you following what I'm asking? Because you say you reconcile it, because I said something about seeing larger numbers on, I'm not going to say where or what specific line it was. And you probably can figure it out because it was big enough and you know who gets the most money. They collected that money. Taxpayer paid that. Then you reconcile it after the fact, correct? Okay, and you find out that there's too much money paid to that entity.
No, that's not the process.
Well, where does that money go that they pay?
What happens is during the month, these are all collected. At the end of the month, tax office pulls out those ones that have CED assessments. This is
I'm not talking about CED assessments. This is not, they're line items that go to a levying body.
right, but the total amount that comes in, tax office pulls out CED amount and does not process that through the rest of the distribution. The rest of the taxes are distributed by the distribution rates. The levy rates they're given by the assessor essentially. And that's done to formally that the state tax department has put together a spreadsheet. For the TIF part, we have to separate the TIF from the CED when we talk about this.
That's not either one of those. It's not, I'm not talking about CED and I'm not talking about TIP.
Okay.
I'm talking about what I would pay on my tax ticket, one of the lines I would pay on my regular tax ticket.
Yeah, that is done automatic.
But my question is, where did that money go? The overage, if there is an overage, because like I said, I've looked at ones from back then and the ones that you just did, and there is a huge difference in the numbers.
In what's shown on the difference, absolutely.
Right, but I'm just trying to figure out where that money went. So it's not involved in your reconciliation. Those numbers are not involved in your reconciliation.
It's the
No,
proper.
the numbers-
Okay, just the CED and the TIF. Okay, there you go. Thank you. Sorry, I thought of that after the fact. So I had to ask.
Okay, so what?
And by the
If-
way,
if
we've
we're-
gotten written up for this at least the last 3 years, saying that, and our response to the auditor is we're gonna work with tax office and software systems, and here we are finally.
So if MuniCap can prove out in looking at all the historical going back to 2007, what was supposed to be collected, what was actually collected, and what went to the trustee, why is there a need to look at the monthly reconciliations?
Because we're getting, from a taxpayer's perspective, what they get is a tax ticket
And
And they pay
we're all willing
then
to
they get a
concede that they're not
receipt.
correct.
that shows you, here's how much was paid out to the state, the county current, the excess levy.
And
the
they're,
school
and they're
current.
not correct.
Right, and
Yes.
we're all.
So what's
sitting here
your
agreeing.
concern behind that? Just that they don't appear correct or that the monies didn't go to the right place?
Both. I mean, I think every taxpayer in the state of West Virginia has an interest in knowing that their tax tickets are accurate and that when they pay those and get a receipt from the sheriff, that it's an accurate accounting of how the money goes.
So we'll
And I
get,
really, the
we'll get
statement
that-
that it doesn't matter whether they're inaccurate. I just don't see how you can square
I didn't
that.
make that statement. I
You
said,
did.
I
You
said, doesn't matter.
I'm sorry, I heard you just say it doesn't.
No, I said, doesn't matter.
But it does. I mean, I think any taxpayer cares that when they receive a tax bill, that it's accurate and that when they pay it.
So
that the
that's why
receipt
we're,
they
we're
receive
going
it
through the
accurate.
process, a very arduous process with software systems to try to make the statements and the receipts appear accurate going
But-
forward.
What happens to the fund? Where are the funds that were paid previously?
That's what Tom is saying.
That's
He's
what I'm-
saying if we give you the background underneath, which shows where the money went and how it was supposed to go, why do we have to get into the monthly reconciliations?
Correct.
And I agree with Tom that if I'm a taxpayer, I pay a tax bill. Let's say it has apples and oranges wrong on its face, which is what we're talking about here, right, Tom?
Yes.
But then Tom is saying, let's look underneath, step behind the curtain and let's look at where my money actually went. And if it didn't go correctly, or pardon me, if it went correctly and there isn't much deviation over history of the course of payment between where it was supposed to go and where it went, why are we going to do this massive reconciliation process?
Because what if it was too much money that went somewhere?
Well, but it'll show that when we look at where the
Okay.
money
That's
went.
what we're saying.
Okay.
It'll show,
It'll show it.
it'll show.
But
what-
is that for those lines that he just said, or is that for the CED and the, I'm old. And the
And,
TIF?
and my understanding is that's exactly what should be reflected in the monthly reconciliation reports. We received payment on X ticket for Y parcel. here's what's reflected in the ticket and the receipt, but here's where the money's actually gonna go. We don't know that because we haven't seen any of these reports, and that's why we've asked for them.
Yeah, but we can reconstruct what was actually collected and where the money went. So therefore, I don't see the relevancy of that at that point.
You don't see the relevance.
I don't know, because is your all's concern is the monies that were paid, wasn't ultimately applied in the correct way to the bonds? Isn't that the question?
At the end of the day, yes.
That's what the MuniCap, the information that we're talking about from MuniCap should show that.
And so they're doing it on an annual basis, and the reports show us how it's done on a monthly basis. I mean, those reports are essentially the supporting data, right?
Those go back way behind Joni. We don't know where, I mean, Joni, do you know where those reports are? Could you go down to your office and get those reports right now?
But the software systems is the one that creates them, correct?
I don't know. Does software system create the monthly reconciliation report? Is there a report, or is this done by hand?
Excel spreadsheet, mouse and our
Okay, so this is done on an Excel spreadsheet. How far back do you have the Excel spreadsheets? Okay, she's going to check how far back they have.
Are the spreadsheets done with a formula? Your question was a good one, Tom. Are they done with a formula, or are they done by hand with essentially somebody keying them in? We have
to key the amounts that the CD is collected. So we get that amount. And then once we get that amount, the software is going to pull it out, so we'll not go to the regular tax.
Is it sent to them in an email or some other? How is it sent to them?
Software.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That seems like something that shouldn't be too difficult to locate.
Okay. If they can come up with the information, I'm all for it.
Then,
I'm just concerned that if they can't, then what do we do? That's my concern.
then the obvious right now is simple, and we can go back and forth forever, and we'll just make the motion that everybody kind of gets exactly what they're looking for, and that motion is to review the audit and reconcile Charles Point TIF District taxes, statement, payment, receipt, distribution, allocation, including but not limited to the related trustee amount pertaining to Charles Point TIF District created by the TIF District present day with specific community enhancement district, the assessment and the portion of the real estate and personal property tax earmarked dedicated for the payment and interest of the principal of the county commission tax increment revenue. And then the sole purpose of this is that way you get what you want, because you represent us. And so this allows you as representative us to get all the information. And it's that simple.
I'm all for it. If the information exists.
Absolutely.
And it can be easily accessed, I'm all for it.
This motion appeases both sides. It makes everything, it makes all the water clean, not muddy, and then we go from there. It's as simple as that.
I'm good with that.
Okay, Madam, I call the question on the floor.
Who's gonna take the lead on this?
That's where the parameters come in.
That's been the whole,
Yeah.
I mean, who needs to go first? Who needs to go second? If it goes in order.
Well, you have what,
I mean, can MuniCap give us what they have and the tax office and software systems give us what they have on the other? I mean, I don't know. Cause I don't want to just do a motion and then nothing happens.
well,
And
you,
we set a time when we can have this done.
And we incur a bunch of soft costs.
You are.
but if we follow the collective agreement that was established in 07 by our representation, then Susan, the process works itself out. I mean, this goes clear back to Sheriff Jack. So it's not anything new. All we're doing is exactly
I
what we've been
understand, but we
doing.
gotta understand who's gonna
Right.
do this and get it done.
And as Tommy said,
We're not,
in
we haven't spun
daylight.
our wheels today.
Right.
That's my point. I don't wanna go through this again. So.
As I understand the motion, I think it leaves that question open and may be appropriate.
I didn't even understand the motion.
It may be appropriate.
Did
for
you
me-
understand that motion?
The motion just opens up everything, Tommy, to be reassessed and accounted to make sure all money's being allocated where it's supposed to go and counted for correctly.
Okay,
And it's no different than we would do for any. It has nothing to do with Genesis. This has to do, as Commissioner President said, we want to make sure all tickets are right throughout the county. So if anybody had a question, we would dive into it. So this is a question from just one entity that we have questions from other entities that we dive into and clarify for them.
On the question of who's going to do it, I think it may be appropriate for the developer to talk with Trey and Mr. Raymond, perhaps outside of the meeting context, to figure out here's the most efficient way to get us from point A to point B. And if the commission wants to put this item on an agenda a month or 6 weeks from now and get a report on that progress, although I suspect Mr. Zimmerman or Mr. Raymond can report to the commission informally. I mean, in a different, not necessarily in a meeting. But I would like to think that between the three of us, we can work through that issue, Madam President. I think it may be better if the motion leaves that question open. It is an appropriate discussion, but probably not one that we can get a final answer to in this meeting. It may not be an efficient use of the commission's time.
I understand where I'm coming from. I
Yes.
just want it done. That's all. At the least amount of cost, because here we go. It's just, this has been cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And sorry, I have to say,
This is certainly not gonna help. There's gonna be costs.
but we've got to get to
Yeah.
the root of this.
I'm just
And
telling you, this is another line of cost that you're about to incur.
What do you suggest? We just let it go?
No,
and-
I'm just gonna tell you, it's gonna
I
cost.
understand that.
It's
I
gonna
understand
cost.
that. I don't like it. I wish we'd have done this 6 months ago.
You mean
Probably
6
wouldn't
years
have-
ago?
We probably wouldn't have incurred as much cost as we've incurred up to this point.
Yeah, it's been done the
so-
same way for 15 years.
Quick comment.
I know, but I hate those words, Tom.
About persistence in the charging for it all
Okay,
at all.
thank you, Michael.
Okay.
Okay. So we understand the motion.
I do.
Everybody's good.
Comment.
Okay.
Suggestion, here's what I would suggest the county do. County gets all the data ready. We get the annual reports, we get the monthlies, we give them all to the developer, and we set a time frame for the developer to come back with issues related to the data which we provide. And we don't spend a bunch of money ourselves internally reviewing the data. We just do the data dump. We look at how much data it is. We then at a later date set because we don't really know. It's not fair to say, oh, you get 30 or 60 days. It's just not fair to do that to anybody without looking at it. Oh, is that all right, Tom?
This is whatever you feel is appropriate.
Well, I just think we need to look at the data and then set a time frame for them to come back and present if they find issues. But I don't think the county should spend a ton of time, energy, effort, and resources on an internal type audit, which we're going to do ourselves, other than getting and looking at the deviations, which is what we talked about.
That sound.
Mhm.
We have the trustee report.
What was the question?
Trustee reports. I want to see.
The trustee
Okay.
reports that Mr. Kennedy mentioned as well, I think, would be helpful in that respect. I think, I understand the county's resource concern. Obviously,
We'll never get 'em.
whenever we receive this data, we do intend to look at it. We do intend to identify issues. I think it's still prudent for the county to satisfy itself that the numbers and the calculations are accurate in whatever way the county may determine. But obviously, we are going to conduct our own review once we can receive these data.
Yeah, that less time on the front.
I can ask this question. Does the issue have a right, the issue of a right to the bondholders or the UMBs or trustees accounts? You get money, you just gotta make sure it's there. I don't see why they have a problem.
I think we can ask for it. I don't think we'll ever get it.
Why?
They don't want to focus on that right now. they want to focus on trying to restructure the bonds.
Which is another issue, Tommy, because
Don't know how much has been paid.
we don't know how much to pay, and this bond person, you don't have his phone number, you don't know who he is, you don't know where he's at, we've invited him umpteen million times. Tommy represents us, not him. Tommy can't even get him here. I mean, the man doesn't exist. We have a spider web of money going everywhere with no person at the end of any of them. We don't know any individuals. We have no idea where this money goes. If somebody can tell me where millions of dollars goes, but I see line. I just don't see a person. And it's the one person we always bring up and doesn't exist. You don't know his phone number. She doesn't know his phone number. I don't know where his office is at. I'm not sure he knows where Harrison County, West Virginia is at. So let's move forward and we'll gather the information. We always do. All right, motion on the floor.
And we're good with the way Trey suggested.
Sure. Because she can't spend hours on one thing. She's got 65,000 citizens.
I get. We all, three attorneys in agreement with,
Okay,
Yes, Madam President.
okay,
I can't confirm, we have copies of all Jones.
what's that?
We do have copies of all Jones.
Okay, okay,
okay.
For her period.
Okay. okay. I think we've discussed the motion at length. We're good, right? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried.
Thank you, guys.
Yes.
Thank you.
Number 16, review, discuss, consider Verizon antenna lease agreement, potential executive sessions 269A pursuant to 69A 4B9 to consider matters involving or affecting the purchase, sale, or lease of property, advanced construction planning, the investment of public funds, or other matters involving commercial competition, which if made public might adversely affect the financial or other interests of the state or any political subdivision.
I don't need an executive session, Madam President.
I don't need an executive session. I'm not a fan of this, of the amendment. They have the annual right to terminate the lease agreement on notice to the county. If you renegotiate now, it's very likely that they'll come back to you and just continue to go down. I think we need to look at how many antennas they actually have on the tower, because that will determine how valuable the lease is to them. So before we consider this, I think we need to go back to the provider and the lessee and get some detail on how many towers they have. They're just trying to lower the rent rate.
Then we'll make the motion on the floor that the administration work with them and get us a number of how many antennas they have on the tower, please.
And just to be clear, this is for the Grafton Tower, please.
Okay, so the motion's on the floor for the administration to
Get back to us with the number of antennas
work
on the
with
tower.
them
Yeah,
to find out more information. on the tower.
yeah.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None, motion carried. Number 17, review, discuss, consider, approve changes to the bylaws of the Harrison County Taylor 911 Advisory Board.
Madam President, these are bylaws that, updated bylaws that have been approved by the Harrison Taylor 911 Advisory Board, and they come in front of commission for approval.
Madam President, do you have any?
No, I wasn't there
Then-
the day they did this.
But I mean, Rainey, that they did, nothing was really changed.
No.
So motion to approve the changes to the bylaws, of the Harrison County, Taylor County 911 Advisory Board.
Motion to approve the changes to the bylaws of the Harrison Taylor 911 Advisory Board. Any discussion?
Mm-mm.
Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carried. Authorizing, okay, number 18, review, discuss, consider authorizing the county administrator to move forward with negotiations on Route 19 property. Offer discussion, potential executive session pursuant to 69A 4B9 to consider matters involving or affecting the purchase, sale, or lease of property, advanced construction planning, the investment of public funds or other matters involving commercial competition which, if made public, might adversely affect the financial or other interests of the state or any political subdivision.
So Madam President, Commission has prior given me authorization to negotiate on this Route 19 property. It was requested that, it's on the agenda, whether we discuss maybe moving forward with making an offer to them. Or if Commission wants to just continue the negotiations.
I'm ready to go.
No, go ahead. I'll make the motion that you go ahead and make the offer, Madam Administrator, and just move the ball forward.
Motion to make an offer to the property owner.
Based on the appraisal.
Route 19 based on the appraisal. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? None, motion carried. Okay, before I say all those, what do we got on 19? Review, discuss, consider budget revisions.
We have nothing. 19 is just a standing one,
Okay.
that will be taken up in the next special commission meeting.
Okay, so there's no action to be taken on number 19.
That is correct.
Okay. Number 20, review, discuss, consider sheriff's tax office transfer of funds request for fiscal year 2024-2025.
Am I reading this right? $40?
Yes, sir.
Motion approved.
Motion to approve the transfer for the sheriff's tax office. Any discussions?
It cost us $80 to do that.
Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Number 21, review, discuss, consider sheriff's line item revisions to the current fiscal year 2024-2025 budget for the following division. That's 700 law enforcement, and there are several line items.
So Madam President, this sort of follows up from last week's tabled item. They fixed those line items and added some more to it. So I would recommending approving number 21 as presented, and then also removing number 3 from the tabled items.
Motion to approve as stated by the county administrator.
Okay, the motion has been made to approve as stated by the county administrator. My only question is 108 and 109. What line items are those?
Overtime and extra helps.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Number 22, review, discuss, consider prosecuting attorney's budget revisions for 2020 fiscal year 2024-2025.
Motion to approve the moving of $133.
Motion to approve the prosecuting attorney's budget revision. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Sorry. Ooh, it's been a meeting.
Just for clarification purposes.
Have we approved the fireworks third reading, final reading?
No.
Okay.
Did Commissioner Treecost motion also include pulling number 3 off the table item?
Oh,
or
no,
do we
it did
need it
not.
back
As
in?
stated by you.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
I just wanted to make sure for my
No,
note
it
purposes. So no, today was the public comment period for the fireworks ordinance. And then the second reading would be on the July 18th, 16th
But
agenda.
if we want to review or.
And if we want to make a revision,
We can do that and it
since-
extends everything.
since my good friend waited 1 month to hit me with something.
I already got her on that. yesterday.
about that. I'm very sorry.
I do agree that if it doesn't mean, if it's not too hard to, the $1,000 one time let's let that be the discretion between $200 and $1,000 based on the circumstances identified by
Add a
the
few other days.
deputy.
We just can't say birthday because that.
Like the words up to $1,000.
Yeah, up to $1,000, minimum 200, up to, because if you don't have a minimum,
Right.
then people,
$50 fines if you don't have a minimum. That's true. But let's not forget court costs will be almost $200.
right, so let's make it $200 so we cover our butt.
So you're gonna get a $400
Yeah.
hit.
So what's the
And
problem?
match.
Then let's make it a $400 minimum then. Is that what you just told me?
No,
No.
if it's a $200 fine, you're gonna add $200 to that court cost.
Okay, we're tracking. Okay, we'll take that.
So
Okay, I agree. If you can revise that,
some of the dates.
no, 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 I love the big. Oh,
What about the linear feet?
okay.
No.
No,
I mean, is it de
Just-
facto ban for the entire county? With 500 linear feet, I'm telling you.
The whole point is to keep it away from the houses.
We've never had a problem with fireworks in this county where houses are burning.
I wouldn't say, now, you just jinxed if we didn't.
okay,
Okay, I can make those changes.
She's the
and
one
then
that
bring it
knocked on
to
wood.
the-
You're the one that said it.
what do we got next here?
We'll chat.
Chat.
Okay. Administrators report.
I really have nothing. Still working on the elevators. I mean, at least we have 2 elevators at the courthouse working today, knock on wood. And then we'll figure out about next week. We're going to have a special meeting for the coal severance budget revision that we will have to approve before the
Okay, I knew
deadline.
Paul Severance was somewhere in the mix here, so.
Full severance is due by the state by July 15th. It has to be done. We don't have the final numbers from for month end of June. That's why the special meeting will be needed to be had next week.
Nothing else.
Nothing.
What about the parking lot up here? What are we doing there?
Parking lot, talk to Trey.
Be looking at my neck.
I'm not. These are mine, don't you want to see them?
I believe it.
So Trey and I discussed the parking lots and we'll have to go out to bid for them. RFPs already drafted to go out.
What are we doing?
For the parking lot,
But what are we looking to RFP?
to put arms
Okay.
in. And to have
Okay,
the paid and the
I
employee.
just wanted to make sure. Okay, we volunteer fire department situation.
Volunteer Fire Department, a RFP has been written. Trey is reviewing it. As soon as he reviews it, that will be posted as well. And the RFP for the dump truck ends, I believe, today. So that'll be,
It'll be out, it's going out or.
RFP for dump truck is already
Okay,
out.
today's the deadline.
Today's the deadline.
Okay.
Can you get,
Okay, that's all I have.
can you get that letter out for support for that water line, please?
Yes, for what Mr. Grill,
Mr. Dale.
Yeah,
yes,
please.
thank you. Dale spoke of today. Yes, sir.
And then the only thing I have is, Madam President, I want us open for business tomorrow. Okay, we agree. Look, Marlar, will you send,
And
will you send
I
a
don't know where
letter?
we are with that. I mean, how, I don't know. I really don't know legally.
Well, I
Just
just.
say to
It's up to
Yeah,
you.
but yeah, I know, but it is in our manual if he designates a holiday, designates a day a holiday. Now, is what he did consider designation? That's my question.
No,
So I'm kind of at a, if it's in the manual, we have to do it and it's a designation, then I don't think we have much choice. But I'm with you, Patsy, but
I agree with you 100%, but we do have a choice and we're gonna work. We're gonna serve our citizens and we're not gonna, we're not gonna let the
You have to get
prosecutor and
Trey for
everybody.
this.
have you asked him about that?
The proclamation portion, no. He did give his opinion earlier today.
Well, I know I saw that, but my question, that was after that.
Yes, I
Is that
have not,
considered designation, which is in our manual? I mean, I hate to be like that. I do, but man, wait till the last minute to do something.
Don't hate to be like that.
It's not actually, yeah, you're correct, you didn't declare a holiday.
Right, and usually in the past,
State employees get extra day.
that's for the state employee.
Leaving it to the discretion of private businesses, local governments, and other individuals not employed by. the
Okay,
state.
there you go. There you go.
Yeah, I don't see a proclamation on the site or anything
No,
like that.
he's never done a proclamation. Like, I mean, he's
I
never.
mean, he ruined a bunch of stuff for us because the state workers aren't coming, things that we need done.
It's all state.
have you heard
Okay,
what
so-
the courts are doing?
So, and
We'll say it again.
Have you heard what the courts are doing?
They're split, the courts are split, Wood County's closed, Tyler's not.
they don't have to be unanimous?
Oh, the courts, I thought you said courthouses.
Oh, no,
Like-
court.
Oh, yeah, I know the courthouse. I know, because I'm seeing
Commissions
it.
are split. No, I haven't heard anything about.
Well, I'm with you. I'm sorry, everybody, but that's just. On that, if it's legal, we can do it. If he's left it to our discretion, then he's left it to our discretion. Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried.
You want your purse? Yeah.